This is the Atari 8-bit podcast.
This is Antic, the Atari 8-bit podcast. I'm Kevin Savitz. Dan Hale published one program for the Atari 8-bit computers, EasyGrader, which first appeared in the fall 1982 APX catalog. I will read its entry in that catalog. EasyGrader, by Dan Hale of AD Enterprises, recommended for teachers and school administrators, written in BASIC. Teachers will love keeping classroom records with EasyGrader. You can store student grades, compute averages, assign final grades, produce statistics, and print reports with this comprehensive package. Whether you teach one course a year or 5 courses a day, EasyGrader helps reduce the effort needed to organize and produce class records. EasyGrader's particularly well-designed set of menus and prompts easily guides you through the information you provide the program. To use available computer memory most efficiently, you indicate the number of characters you wish to allocate for class size, number of assignments, and lengths of student and assignment names. For example, EasyGrader can support 100 assignments for 35 students with names as long as 25 characters and assignment names as long as 20 characters. You can specify your own grading standard, and the program supports both curve and standard percentage grading. EasyGrader assigns letter grades with pluses and minuses, allowing you to adapt previously established grading methods to the program. You can produce reports for students with low grades using any desired average as the cutoff. EasyGrader accommodates both students who've been excused from some assignments and those who enter a course during the term. An optional sorting feature will reorder a class list alphabetically by name to accommodate added students. You can also print 2 kinds of final grade reports, as well as reports of class average statistics for any assignment and a frequency plot for final grades. EasyGrader makes the most of your Atari computer's time-saving capabilities while letting you retain your traditional grading system. The author invites written questions and comments. Review comments. EasyGrader is an extensive record-keeping package requiring some practice to appreciate fully. The thought that went into this program's design reduces the amount of data entry necessary and automates vital operations. The printed reports and inquiry screens are comprehensive and easy to use. The user manual is very good. Requires Atari Basic Language Cartridge, DOS-2 formatted diskettes for storing data. Optional, Atari printer or equivalent printer. Order information. It was available on diskette, which required 40K of RAM. It cost $22.95. It was APX catalog number 20152. This interview took place on May 30th, 2017. Kind of set me up with your story. I kind of know some of it because you sent me an email in 2000, so we'll see if you stick to your same story. You told me that.
Oh, 2000, that was what, 17 years ago?
Yes.
I doubt that I can stick to the same story because I probably will remember.
You graduated Caltech in 1975. I know that.
Yeah, well, that I can remember. I should better to say I survived Caltech. But at any rate, yeah, that's what happened, and so I don't know. I bought my first computer not too long after that. I think it was an S100. I spent way too much money on computers back then, I think. I was like $5,000. And
Nice.
Anyway, so, and out of Caltech, I worked for a few years for a seismic instruments company. And then I worked for McDonnell Douglas. They were making, at that time, it was the division that was making a machine tool control, and eventually ended up becoming a consultant. And I think I might have already been a consultant, or around that time, probably before when I picked up my Atari, which was not long after the S100 computer.
Did you have an Atari 400 or 800? What'd you get?
And an Atari 800 back when they were really expensive. Like over $1,000 or at least $800 or something like that. I forget, but they were like a similar price to the Apple II back then. I was very disappointed when not too much after that they went down to a much lower price, and the Apple II continued to be. Well, I could have bought an Apple II for the same price almost.
But the Atari is a better machine, so you made the right choice.
Well, I guess, but I guess it wasn't as popular as time went on, and there's probably more software developed for the Apple II.
That's true, for sure.
So, at any rate, it was sort of but doing that sort of thing, I wrote that program because my brother's wife was a school teacher.
Okay.
So I wrote it so that, she'd have something to do grading with, and that was the story.
Did she use it?
Yeah, she did. I believe she did use it on the Atari, but also, of course, you wouldn't know this, but I kind of converted it over and also put it on an IBM PC. Oh,
interesting.
And I don't know I don't know if I ever sold it on. I don't even remember whether I sold any copies of it on the APX. That rings a bell. Like maybe I did sell a few copies, but I just can't remember. And I know that I also made another version that ran on the IBM PC, and I know that got used at least by my sister-in-law.
So she started with the Atari version and then switched to the PC, maybe?
I think she did. I think she did use the Atari version initially. But like I said, it's been a long time.
Sure. No, I get that answer a lot. Let's see. So EasyGrader came out in the 1982 catalog, and it sold for $22.95. And you would have seen 10% royalty off that. So it's easily possible you made anywhere between $3 and $30.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably didn't make much. That's nothing that I'd remember.
Sure.
I was reasonably well paid as a contractor back then. So
this was just a side hustle.
Yeah, it was just something I did for kind of for fun and interest, and and in my job, of course, my first job, I was programming an IBM 370 for that when I worked for the Seismic Instruments Company, and then they actually they started making something that had a 1602 chip in it. Mm-hmm. So then I got it into embedded programming with that, and then ended up McDonnell Douglas. They had I think right around, probably a similar time, but they had like a Z8000, I think. So anyway, I was doing that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. Back in those days, people actually wrote programs in assembly language.
Yeah.
And so quite a bit of what I did back in those days was in assembly code.
EasyGrader, however, was written in BASIC.
Exactly. Yeah, Atari BASIC.
Yeah. Did you do any other Atari programs, either published or unpublished?
I fiddled with Atari. I think it was, I was maybe worked on some kind of, just for the fun of it, was doing some kind of maybe some serial transfer type stuff. I don't think I ever published anything there. Just fiddled with it a little. I remember the 6502 was the processor in the Atari, as I recall. Mm-hmm. And I don't think it was anything else. I think the Apple probably had something different, besides I didn't have an Apple. But I remember one time I was working and fiddling with 6502 assembly code, and I was thinking, well, what could we do different here? And I was fiddling with the idea of using data statements to put arguments to a function in assembly code. Just drop the data in there rather than pushing it on the stack and pulling it back off the stack. Mm-hmm. And, of course, that works for constant data, but it also works for constant pointers. And then you would, then you just have to make sure you move the return, and you would return after the data when you return from the function. So that was a cute idea, and I used that some years later, I think, with a Z8000 processor, because they were trying to find a way to make the program smaller, and it was written in assembly code. That was, I think, actually I don't know if it ever really went into the JAS-39 aircraft, but I was working for Lear Siegler, who had a contract with the Swedish government, I guess, working on that, and so don't know. But anyway, the JAS-39 did actually happen, so maybe some of my code is in there.
Cool.
And what I really did there, though, is I worked on mathematical functions, fixed point functions like sine and cosine and square root, and I found some cute ways to make them go very fast.
Very cool.
So that's what I like to do, actually, was write assembly code and make it go like crazy.
Awesome. Nice. All right. What do you do with yourself today?
Well, today I work for a company that manufactures aircraft. Actually, remotely piloted aircraft.
Okay.
And I work on flight control software, among other things.
Cool. Is this what lay people would call drones?
I think yes, exactly. So I've worked on all kinds of software that relates to that, but flight control software most recently. Also on so a number of interesting things there, and so I'm still doing the down and dirty real time stuff.
Tell me something. This is awfully vague, but tell me something that might be surprising about where flying drones are going that I might not know.
Let's see. Well, of course, autonomous flight is something that's already happening, but I guess you could expect that to happen more. By autonomous, I mean that just like they're working on cars that drive themselves, of course, airplanes that fly themselves are more and more common these days. Like they even take airplanes that have been piloted and they put control systems in them so they can fly themselves, and they can use them for, target practice, among other things, I guess, but if they want to. But at any rate, I suspect that we're going to see more and more completely automatic flight, as with different kinds of aircraft. And so I suppose that would be someplace. But I think you would expect that, wouldn't you?
Maybe. I don't know if I'm ready to get into a plane that doesn't have a human pilot, but for flying around and shooting at it, sure, okay.
Well, actually, I hate to tell you this, but recently I heard that there was a crash of an aircraft, a commercial aircraft. You see, they already have so much automation in them that the flight crew doesn't have to do much of anything normally.
Yeah.
You can press a button and it takes off automatically. And more importantly, they can land automatically. But apparently, as the story goes, I think I just heard it today at lunch or yesterday at lunch from my coworkers, there was an instance where something went wrong, something iced up, and the flight crew was supposed to take over, and they were just not in the habit of doing it, and they screwed up so badly that the thing crashed and everybody died.
Wow.
Because they didn't take over from the automation. And then they weren't experienced enough or whatever. So I hate to tell you, but that world is already here. Scary, huh?
Yeah, that's scary. Yeah, I've heard about pilots in little planes who, they know how to fly by GPS, whatever. The GPS goes out and they don't know how to use a VOR anymore or any of the basic old stuff, and they get into situations that way. Yeah,
that's... So anyway, but I think the good news really is, though, that I expect before very long we're going to be able to buy cars. I mean, they're already, Google's already testing them, of course, that drive themselves. And I believe that in a very short amount of time, the cars that drive themselves are going to be a lot safer than the cars that are driven by a human. Mm-hmm. They'll react faster. They'll be more polite. All kinds of stuff.
Good, excellent. So did your sister-in-law give you a list of what she needed in a grading program, or did you just sort of wing it?
I sort of interviewed her to see what she wanted, and I kind of put it in. Of course, after all, having been a student for so long, I kind of knew about that kind of stuff.
Sure.
But I think I talked to her about what she wanted and the features, and tried to provide something that would do, some kind of curve grading and also some kind of, just normal averaging stuff. And I think that's what it was.
All right. And you have no memory of... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot about... One of the things I didn't do, I think, with EasyGrader is it wasn't a true WYSIWYG kind of a thing, where it had like a built-in spreadsheet, you just drop everything into it and that sort of thing, which was kind of before that day.
Sure.
But over the years, I thought about it and said, it really should just look like a grade book. But then again, I imagine a lot of teachers just use Excel now.
I suppose, yeah.
I don't know what they use, but Excel works fairly well. But then again, it's not customized for that. So I think there are some very fancy grading programs out there today that probably do a really nice job.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything about the Atari days that I haven't asked you that I should have?
Can't think of it.
All right.
But it was fun while it lasted.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan. I appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
If you enjoy these interviews and would like to contribute, there are two ways you can help. You can help fund these interviews directly by contributing to my Patreon. A small monthly contribution will help offset the expenses of making these oral history interviews. Contribute at patreon.com/Savitz. Or make a tax-deductible contribution to the Internet Archive, a nonprofit digital library that has done incredible things to preserve computer history. Make your tax-deductible contribution at archive.org/donate. Thanks.